I'd like to invite up Jeff Pomeranz, and Jeff has been mentioned as the city manager of the city of Cedar Rapids, and he wanted a lengthy introduction, but I'm going to cut it short for him. He became the new city manager of Cedar Rapids in June 20th, 2010. He's had a 25-year career serving as city manager for 3 other cities, including the city of West Des Moines, city of Port Angeles, Washington, and the city of Del Rio. He's also served as an executive board member for the Iowa League of Cities and the Iowa City Management Association. He's obviously perfectly well positioned to talk about what's been going on recently and where we're at and how that sort of fits in on the ground kind of action. So, Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. And I always get concerned when I follow Mayor Corbett as far as being a speaker. He said to me this morning, well, you're making the big speech, Jeff. I'm just going to welcome everybody. But he always does such an outstanding job because he really cares about the community and has so much passion for the community. And I know all of you saw that this morning. I have a couple of points I wanted to make this morning, and I'll kind of go through those one by one. But the first is going to be why I think that the city of Cedar Rapids has been as successful as it has been as far as our recovery. And we certainly believe we're successful, and I think all of you can see the results of that success. I'm also going to then go into some details about some of our projects, sort of where we stand from a community recovery perspective. And then last, I'm going to make a recommendation or two about how I think cities and local governments can be helped and assisted in the future as they have to confront similar kinds of events as the city of Cedar Rapids. The first point is why have we done as well as we have? And certainly we have a ways to go, so we know that. The job is not done, but I think that the community has been successful over the last 5 years. As a relative newcomer, I came to the city in September of 2010. Over the last year or so, I get comments from citizens saying, you know, I've been in Cedar Rapids my whole life, or I've been here for 25 years, and I really feel the community is changing. I really feel like the community is getting stronger, and I feel better about Cedar Rapids and its future today than I ever have. And I get that comment a lot, and I think that has to do with the progress and the momentum of our community. So what are those ingredients after the flood that helped lead us to this journey of success? And you heard from Mayor Corbett this morning, and he mentioned some of the individuals involved from a city perspective, from a community's perspective with our recovery. But I really feel that leadership is absolutely critical to success. And that may seem obvious, but we look at communities across the country, and some are extremely successful when they face a crisis such as Cedar Rapids, and some are not. Some take a lot longer. And I'm sure there are examples of communities and states that have also responded faster. But to me, our success absolutely would not have occurred without strong leadership. And that doesn't just come from the city of Cedar Rapids, as the mayor mentioned. It's county government, state government, key partner in helping us, nonprofits, citizens, and businesses. But in Cedar Rapids, we had that strong leadership from the city perspective, and we also, again, were bolstered up by other layers of government, levels of government, and I particularly say by our citizens. We had citizens through their businesses, but also individually stepping up and assisting our community through assistance of just their energy, but also their resources, financial resources in particular. And so that was absolutely vital. But I'd say that when you have strong leadership, your recovery is going to be healthier. And you've involved and included a broad range of individuals in that recovery. And so you, in effect, have an identified and successful path to recovery, and the community's best interests are taken into account. What I've seen in my time in the city is that leadership is constantly tested. And it's tested by members of the community, it's tested by other layers and levels of government, it's tested by the media, and that is fair and appropriate. But it's easy, I think, for individuals in political power to lose their way, to give up, to say, well, perhaps that plan we put in place really isn't the right plan because we're now getting attacked for it. But what you had in Cedar Rapids is a city government and a county government and a community that saw a goal and kept pushing towards that goal. And there were distractions along the way. There were different ideas, different concepts of how we should move forward. But I would say that the community kept moving forward in a very positive fashion with a plan that was put in place very, very early after the flood. And if we would have had political leaders who would have given up again, who would have been afraid, who would have stepped back from potential controversy, the success that we see today just wouldn't be here. And I'm absolutely convinced of that. So as we think about how important leadership is, we also need to think, and this group needs to think, how do we support those leaders during those dark, difficult hours when perhaps many of your ideas, many of your concepts, many of your plans are being questioned? And, the mayor mentioned, the very move of this building. Some people laughed at that. Well, we have lots of examples at the city of how our decision-making was questioned. And again, we have no problem with that, but the important thing is that you have strong leaders, that if you believe in a plan, if the plan is the right plan, if it's based on data, if it's based on fact, that you keep moving towards that goal and you don't get distracted. And I do see that in other places, and I think it's something to keep in mind as a community moves forward, particularly after a devastation such as Cedar Rapids experience. The other point I'd make is the absolute critical nature of collaboration. So when I stand up here as city manager and the mayor is here, we absolutely recognize that what we believe is our success, the success you're seeing around you, is the result of so many different players, so many individuals, entities, groups, governments that have supported our city. But that collaboration, that communication is absolutely vital to success. And you don't see it everywhere across the country. You see at a time of crisis that there is a lack of unity, a lack of joint decision-making, a lack of coming together. And in the case of Lynn County, the city of Cedar Rapids, we came together. Again, we put a plan in place, and we worked with others in a collaborative fashion. And the mayor already mentioned some of the individuals that have been so important to our success. But I'll mention some of those that have been obviously vital to us. FEMA, the State Homeland Security Department, a very, very positive player for the city of Cedar Rapids. And we couldn't have done what we have without the Department of Homeland Security. And that goes across various directors. And so, when you think of, we're the government, we're here to help you, I think of Homeland Security and the friends that we have in the state of Iowa. And that's not always the case, but that partnership has been critical. I think, and it's hard for me to not talk about iJobs. And I happen to be chair of the iJobs board, and which has just been eliminated, Senator. But we supported actually the elimination. We're the only board that I know in history of the state of Iowa that passed a resolution saying, please disband our board. And why did we do that? We did that because there's no money left. And so not much reason to have a board that was supposed to give out money and did give out dollars to cities and counties and governments in need that no longer has resources. But I'd say when we think about leadership, when we think about collaboration, this isn't a political comment, this is a comment of fact. The state of Iowa, through the leadership of Governor Culver, pulled together and said, we need to help our cities. And they did that not just because at the same time the federal government was doing a stimulus policy and that was some political decision. James Lee Witt and Associates, which is one of the most experienced entities that works with communities that are facing disaster, said to the governor, Governor, if you're going to be effective, you need to put a program together to get dollars out to governments and to communities so they can rebuild. And Governor Culver did that. That's an example of a program where had tremendous positive impact on the state of Iowa, absolutely on the city of Cedar Rapids. And yet, while there was, I'm sure, good support, there was also that kind of questioning, is that the right way to use taxpayers' dollars? Do we really need all this, pork barrel money spent on different projects? Well, we wouldn't, if we were in this building without iJobs, it would be a much smaller building, I can assure you. And that goes for almost every project that we're seeing in the city of Cedar Rapids. So when I walk in the convention center, that has iJobs money in it. We're about to open that. When we walk into the library, which is about to open, that has those same dollars in it. When we look at some of our housing that's being rebuilt, that has iJobs money in it. And we look at our Veterans Center in the city of Cedar Rapids, or the county facilities. Almost all of these have iJobs dollars. So when we're so proud of, how far we've come, we have to acknowledge our partners, and we have to acknowledge the leadership of the governor and the legislature that allowed us to get to this point, and then the governments to apply for those dollars and then distributed those dollars. So it was an honor for me to serve as iJobs chair. That's how I got to know the city of Cedar Rapids, and it really is an unusual honor for me as city manager to watch the progress of these various projects now as city manager of the city, because I was in West Des Moines when I started as chair. So I wanted to acknowledge that, the legislature's leadership and the governor's leadership at that time, and show the impact of that collaboration and the impact of that leadership on the community. It would not have happened to this degree of success without that leadership and that collaboration. So thank you to all of our partners, but particularly the state of Iowa. And they never gave me business cards that said iJobs chair, but it's a little late now, I suppose, because my job has been eliminated, which is absolutely fine again. I want to talk a little bit about some of our success, and then as we talk about that, talk about an area that I think we really need some help in. First of all, as far as our housing, when the city council came together right after the flood, they talked about rebuilding the businesses of Cedar Rapids, rebuilding our housing so we don't lose population, as well as the rebuilding of our city facilities and our county facilities and our government facilities. And as far as housing, 1,700 flood-damaged structures were demolished in our neighborhoods. And the city of Cedar Rapids bought over 1,300 flood-damaged properties, and 2,300 properties have been rehabbed. So, you had over 1,700 properties were purchased by our community, demolished, and in many cases taken out of harm's way. So when we look today, the mayor mentioned some of our success. How did we get to this point? When we look out and we see that so many homes have been taken out of harm's way. So there's a lot less sandbagging around the river because of the programs that were put in place to purchase properties and to demolish those properties. And so we talk about an area around the river, allowing the river to breathe. And that's now happened. And luckily for us, and because of our housing programs, those citizens didn't leave the city of Cedar Rapids. They didn't leave Lynn County. Those individuals stayed in our city. So our population actually went up because of the other housing opportunities that were provided through new homes, again supported by the state of Iowa as well as the federal government, as well as rehabilitated. But think about, again, the acquisition of close to 2,000 homes in a community. I mean, that's just absolutely huge when it comes to those kinds of acquisitions. I don't think there's any other community other than New Orleans that has acquired this level of private properties on a voluntary basis. Those properties were, again, in most cases, they've been demolished, and that's allowed the river to breathe and has protected our citizens as we're here today. The city had other programs in place in addition to just demolishing homes and acquiring homes, but other programs, absolutely critical. Our intermortgage assistance programs, our down payment assistance programs to help individuals in their transition into new homes and properties in the city of Cedar Rapids. So it's not just about acquiring a home and then demolishing. It's, how do we get other homes rehabbed? How do we help individuals build new houses in the community further away from harm? And we put all those programs in place. But again, those came with the support of our partners. We had a whole host of housing programs, and other communities are now looking at those as a model. We call our Roots program with significant down payment assistance. We're giving individuals opportunities to buy homes further away from the river, but still in neighborhoods that we feel are absolutely critical to the future of the city of Cedar Rapids, our core neighborhoods. And through our various assistance programs, we're seeing numerous homes being built. In fact, we've had over 58 homes built through our Roots program, and that program is about reinvestment together in our community. And when we look at the value of those homes and we compare the value of the Roots homes to what was in the area prior to the flood, we're seeing some significant increase in valuation. So we believe, and I think the evidence is there, that our housing opportunities and our housing rebuilding project has been a true success. Also a work in progress. The work is not done. We have neighborhoods where there used to be vitality, and now, because of the acquisition, it's pretty quiet. There's green and there's streets and sidewalks which are not being used. So that work is still being done over time. It's a work in progress, but tremendous progress. Without the help of our partners, the state of Iowa and the federal government and our housing programs, that couldn't have been accomplished. Our businesses, 82% of businesses reopened after the flood. This beats the national average of only 55% of businesses returning within 3 years of a disaster. So we saved almost all of our businesses as far as staying in our community, in our area. Again, that amazing statistic took a lot of partners working together and a lot of creativity and a lot of innovation. Programs were developed that met the needs of these businesses with the goal of staying in our community. And so the Chamber of Commerce at that time established a pool of funds immediately after the disaster to provide grant funds for flood-impacted businesses to address immediate needs. There was a round of federal funds that was distributed within a year of the flood, providing assistance to businesses for $50,000 in working capital. Numerous other programs. Programs for equipment reimbursement, flood insurance, rental assistance, loan interest supplements, commercial and rental revenue. And these business recovery programs totaled $88 million to 800 businesses since 2008. $88 million. And so, obviously, again, I want to say couldn't have done it alone. We did it with the help of the state of Iowa, with the federal government, and with our businesses coming together to support our community and saying, we want to be leaders. We want to survive. We want to stay in Cedar Rapids. We don't want to leave. We want to come back. And that being encouraged by your local officials, the mayor, the city council, the city staff of the city of Cedar Rapids, Lynn County, the board of supervisors, all coming together and working together in that collaboration. Engaging our community. I talked about collaboration. I talked about our successes, communication. But engaging the community has always been important to the city of Cedar Rapids. And that's a challenging and difficult process. But shortly after the flood, very, very shortly after, there was significant planning that went into what we want our community to be post-flood. Lots of individuals involved from the community perspective talking about housing and businesses and revitalization and long-term strategy for flood protection. And so, since the flood, that plan, working with all of our partners, has always been critical to our success. And I said before that there have been attacks on that plan. And that's appropriate, because we live in a society where individuals are allowed to question, and they're encouraged to question, and that's their job, whether that's the citizen or that's the media. What I can tell you is, again, that the city council, when they put this initial plan together, they believed in it. Council members changed. New council members came on board. They believed in the plan. So we didn't divert from the goal unless there was some significant reason to do so. And there were certainly cases where there was a change in position. But the broad-scale plan, the broad-scale commitment, what was put on paper shortly after the flood by so many, local political leadership kept moving towards the goal, as I said, and not swaying, and not giving up, and not allowing itself to be impacted by politics or pressure from various groups and individuals. Again, when I look at Cedar Rapids, we see so much progress as we're rebuilding. Just this weekend is going to be a very exciting weekend for the city of Cedar Rapids. We are reopening our U.S. Cell Center. That facility is going to be a far better facility today than certainly we had pre-flood. And that's a combination of city dollars, that's a combination of federal government dollars, and private dollars, Paul Prime Foundation. I mentioned all the elements that come together to assist. But what I'd say is, it's ironic, as has already been mentioned, that here we are reopening, rebuilding, coming back into our facilities, and we have the threat of impact to those facilities. And so there's many, many ways that we're better today than we were before. We have more knowledge. We have the University of Iowa that's been a great partner for us. And that has been critical to our success. So we are smarter, there is no doubt, because we have more information and we have more data and we're more prepared. When I came to Cedar Rapids, my wife and I said, because we came shortly after the flood, we want to be in an area where we really have an understanding of this community. And so we moved into Bottle Works, which is just a block and a half north of here. And last night, my daughter Kayla, who was here with me, we were clearing out the basement because in 2008, the basement flooded at Bottle Works. Now, we're not doing that because we're afraid or we don't believe in city planning that's gone into protecting, but we're also realistic that we need to assure that we're doing the right thing for ourselves and our family. And when I go down 3rd Street or go throughout the community, you see all the preparation that's taking place by members of the community, all the volunteerism, because people know that something could happen. We're certainly we're optimists, but we're individuals who want to be prepared. And so that's what you're seeing throughout our community. So right here at 3rd Street, right outside, not too far from where we are right now, in the Newbo area, you'll see lots of sandbagging. You'll see lots of businesses protecting their interests. You'll see city crews throughout the community helping and sandbagging. There was individuals sandbagging last night. I had a call at midnight, can we get some lights? We assisted with that request. But you have citizens helping, you have city plugging storm drains. We have, as the mayor mentioned, we have PESCO barriers, we have Tiger dams, we have pumps, and we're mobilized, and we're knowledgeable, and we're watching. So all that is vital and critical, and we couldn't do without our citizens recognizing that they need to also take personal responsibility, and we're seeing that. Cedar Rapids needs long-term flood protection. The state is helping us with this, with what's called the Growth Reinvestment Initiative, which allows us, through the support of our legislative heroes in the city of Cedar Rapids, throughout the state, to reinvest sales tax dollars in flood protection. But what I'd say is that's only part of the equation. We need long-term flood protection, and we cannot do it with state dollars. We cannot do it just with city dollars or private dollars. We need the federal government to step forward, pass the Water Resources Bill, and allow communities such as Cedar Rapids to build long-term flood protection. We're talking about, probably $500 million or so, long-term for the system. We cannot do it alone, so we need the federal help. Our citizens recognize the need. We did bring this before our citizens on 2 occasions. We didn't have quite the right proposal, but ultimately we're going to need local support, federal support, state support, business support to get this accomplished. So that's an undone, that need is unmet right now in Cedar Rapids. We've got lots of planning. We've had support from the Corps of Engineers. We've had lots of work in the design area done, but that's something that we need to move forward on. And it needs to be put as a national priority to help communities such as Cedar Rapids build long-term protection. Before I kind of sum up, I wanted to just reflect a little bit on a need that I think we need in communities such as Cedar Rapids that have been affected by devastation. And we all watch TV, and so we saw the devastation of Hurricane Sandy. My mom lives in that area, so you watch from a personal perspective, but more importantly from a community perspective, from a human perspective, seeing the devastation and the impacts. And then you see the politicians and the administrative people, and everybody comes together, and everyone says, how do we help those impacted? And President Obama was walking hand in hand with Governor Christie, which was great and important. I got 1 minute remaining, I got it, but I got to make this point, so I'll make it over a minute or so. So you see all these images, and you see the words, and the words are sincere. But whether it's Hurricane Sandy, or whether it's Moore, Oklahoma, or whether it's Cedar Rapids, Iowa, there's lots of help, there's lots of understanding, there's lots of sympathy right after the devastation. And there's a lot of good words, and there's a lot of support that comes. My words here are not to bash anyone, criticize any entity, because can't do it alone, as I said. But, what happens 2 years after the devastation? What I can tell you as a city manager, and I know our friends at the county experience the same kinds of challenges, eventually the bills come in. And eventually you start to make application to, I'll give as an example, FEMA. And then those applications are reviewed. And the city, and I'll speak for what I know, the city of Cedar Rapids, you follow the law, you follow the rules, you follow policies, and you do your best to meet the requirements. But then when you find over time is, as your requirements are reviewed, as your request is reviewed, and again, I'm thinking of FEMA now, sometimes it's reviewed favorably and sometimes it's reviewed negatively. And there's, again, a tremendous challenge there in, right after the flood, making lots of decisions, and then over time, having those decisions supported, but also the decisions questioned. And then ultimately, for all the good intentions and all the good words and all the hard work, the community could be left with significant bills that are not reimbursed. Another example would be FEMA. You know, we have a situation with the FEMA OIG right now, Office of the Inspector General, where decisions that were made by the city of Cedar Rapids are now being questioned. And we then have a situation where dollars which we feel we're entitled to may not be coming. And again, it's everyone's responsibility to follow the law, to follow rules, to follow policies. And so that's not the criticism. But what I'd say is, again, everyone works with good intent. Everyone works with the belief that you're doing the right thing for the community under the policies that have been written. And then you find yourself at odds with your own government. And then you have an appeal, and then you may lose an appeal, or you may win an appeal, and then the appeal goes to Washington, D.C., and then Washington, D.C. may agree or disagree with the FEMA region in this case. And then you find yourself, again, just at odds with your government, and perhaps out some very significant resources. So a suggestion would be, as all of you think about policies, we need to take that support, take that enthusiasm, take those great words and that initial response, and carry it through the process. And so I think what we need, and something we certainly don't have, is someone at the federal level that is there to assist the governments all the way through, that has some authority. So I think about an ombudsman with authority. So when 3 years after the flood, a city has an issue, it's difficult when the FEMA auditors may have their own position, or the FEMA region has its position, or DC. We need someone that works with us from beginning to end, from the time of crisis to the time of closure, that is our advocate. And certainly, the decisions we make may end up not to the liking of the city as far as the response, but at least we have this advocate. At least we have someone working with us from beginning to end with authority. And we certainly have Homeland Security, but we don't have that level at the federal government working with us. We need that advocate from beginning to end, that ombudsman, that assistance, that long-term support, so that when our decisions are scrutinized, we have a member of the team. We have that leader, we have that collaborator that's there to assist us. So I don't know what the shape of that is, but we're in a system where frustration is built in. And again, we are always here to follow the law, but there's lots of interpretation and lots of gray when you talk about that. So we need that kind of ombudsman from the very beginning. With that, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Sorry it took a little longer, but there's a lot to tell. And I'm happy to answer any questions either now or later.